Welcome to the AI Brief from the YPO Technology Network. I'm Stephen Forte. Everybody in business spent the last 2 years being told AI would change everything. And this month, the mood quietly flipped. The question in every operator conversation, on every business podcast, in every board meeting is suddenly much smaller and much sharper. Fine. But did it actually pay for anything? Here is what I will give you in the next 8 minutes. Why the great AI reckoning arrived right on schedule, what the companies that are quietly getting their money back did differently, and the one question I would put on your next leadership agenda that separates the two groups. If you caught Monday's episode on AI moving from something you consult to something you assign, the shift to handing whole tasks to the machine, today is the receipt. Because now we get to see who actually cashed it. Start with the reckoning because it is real and it is overdue. For 2 years, AI spend got approved on faith. The board heard, we cannot afford to fall behind, the budget moved, and almost nobody asked the rude question at the end of the year. This month, somebody finally asked it out loud. And the number underneath the new mood is not flattering. Across a survey of more than 2,000 companies, only about 1 in 4 has actually gotten AI into real production at scale. Nearly half are still running pilots. Most of the money, in other words, is still sitting in the waiting room wearing a pilot program name tag. You can see the same doubt in the markets. Part of last week's roughly $1 trillion wobble in chip stocks was investors asking exactly what you are asking. This enormous build-out, when does it actually pay back? The reckoning is not just a mood. It is being priced. So here is the lens I want to put on all of it today. The companies getting real money back from AI are not the ones with the most ambitious AI. They are the ones who pointed it at the most boring problem in the building. We are going to read the whole episode that way. And I want to be precise about the evidence because this is exactly where these stories usually fall apart. The 3 companies I'm about to describe were not graded by the vendor that sold them the software. Their returns were measured by an independent research firm that does nothing but check whether technology projects actually paid off. Real financial method, not a marketing brochure. So when I tell you these paid, I mean someone with no stake in the answer went and checked. Take the first one. Edmund Optics makes and distributes precision optics, lenses, the physical stuff, a real company with a real factory floor. Every time the business wanted to combine data from 2 different systems, an engineer had to sit down and hand build that connection. Slow, technical, and there was always a line out the door for it. So they bought an off-the-shelf tool in a category the industry calls agentic data engineering, which is a mouthful for something simple. You tell it what information you want joined together, and the AI writes and wires up the connection itself. Think of it as a junior data engineer who never sleeps, never takes a day off, and never joins the back of the queue, because now the tool is the queue. The result was not smarter analytics or some dashboard nobody opens. It was the deletion of a bottleneck. Building a new data connection got about 3/4 faster. The team absorbed a pile of new work without hiring a single additional person, and the whole thing paid for itself in roughly 4 months. They did not transform the business. They just fired the queue. That was the win. The second one will feel familiar to anyone who makes a physical product. Mary Ruth's Organics is a supplements brand. They manufacture and ship, which means they live and die on quality paperwork and getting the label exactly right. And until recently, their product and quality documents lived in a shared Google Drive, and customer complaints were tracked in a spreadsheet. If your stomach just tightened a little, that is the correct response. They moved all of it into a proper product management system with AI helping track the documents and catch the errors instead of a folder of files and a spreadsheet held together by one very stressed person's memory. Here is what that bought them. Inspection reports that used to eat most of a day came back in an hour or 2. Product updates started shipping about 1/3 faster. And the mistakes on labels and product data, the kind that turn into recalls and regulatory phone calls, dropped by roughly 9 in 10. It paid for itself in under a month. Here is my read on that one. If your product data is living in a spreadsheet, you do not have a filing problem. You have a margin problem wearing a filing problem's clothes. And it is exactly the kind of dull, repetitive, high-stakes chore the machine is now genuinely good at. The third company runs critical infrastructure services, a big, spread-out frontline workforce across several business units. Each unit had grown up with its own patchwork of hiring and HR systems. Recruiting was duplicated, onboarding was inconsistent, and frontline turnover was doing what frontline turnover always does, quietly bleeding money one resignation at a time. They consolidated all of it onto a single workforce system with AI helping screen candidates, build schedules, and support the people already on the payroll. Two things happened. They stopped paying for 5 overlapping systems, and the part that actually mattered, fewer people quit. Turnover dropped by several points, and in a frontline business, every point of turnover you prevent is a hire you do not have to make, a training you do not have to run, and a hole in the schedule that never opens. It paid back in well under a year. The flashiest AI project in a people-heavy company, it turns out, is often just keeping the people you already went to the trouble of hiring. Now step back and look at the three of them together because the pattern is the entire point. Not one of these companies did AI. Nobody built a chatbot. Nobody stood up an innovation lab. Nobody put the word transformation on a slide. Each one found a single specific, expensive and hours chore, building data connections, chasing quality paperwork, rehiring frontline staff, and handed exactly that chore to the machine. That is Monday's work around the work. And the punchline of the whole reckoning is that the work around the work is also where the money was hiding the entire time. Here is my read on why 1 in 4 is winning and half are stuck. The companies in the pilot pile are trying to use AI to reinvent their business. The companies getting paid are using it to stop paying skilled people to do the boring part. One of those is a science project. The other is an investment. So if I were sitting in your seat this quarter, I would do 2 things, and neither of them is visionary. First, go looking for your cue, not your moonshot. Ask each of your function heads one question. What is the task your best people quietly hate, that eats hours every week, and that has a clear right answer? That list, not a strategy offsite, is your actual AI roadmap. Second, refuse to fund anything that cannot tell you what it replaces and when it pays for itself. Every one of these winners had a clean before and after and a date the investment turned positive. If a proposed AI project cannot give you both, you are not evaluating an investment. You are sponsoring a hobby. Here is the challenge I will leave you with, and it is not about any of these 3 companies. On Monday, I told you that you can finally hand the dull, repetitive work to a machine that runs while you sleep. Today's uncomfortable follow-up is that the reason most companies have nothing to show for their AI spend is not that the technology failed them. It is that they went shopping for something impressive when they should have gone shopping for something boring. So the question for your next leadership meeting is not, what is our AI strategy? It is narrower and far more useful. What is the single most tedious, most repeated, most obviously broken chore in this company? And why have we not handed it over yet? The companies getting their money back already asked it. The boring answer was the profitable one. That is the YPO Tech Network AI brief for Tuesday, July 14th. I am Stephen Forte. If this was useful, send it to a fellow member. I will be back Wednesday with more. Until then, stay sharp.